ever, like, noticed how your body freaks out when you're about to do something big?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Say you're about to give a big presentation at work, and suddenly it's like, bam, your heart's going a mile a minute.
Yeah, or your stomach is doing flips because you have to have that, like, really difficult conversation with someone.
Yes. It's like our bodies have a mind of their own sometimes.
It's wild how connected our physical and emotional selves are.
It really is, and that's what I find so fascinating about this deep dive we're doing today into anatomy of the soul. This text dives into Jewish mysticism, and get this, it basically says our bodies are like roadmaps to our spiritual selves.
It's definitely not your typical anatomy textbook.
No kidding.
Yeah, think of it instead more like a decoder ring for your soul.
Okay, now that is an image. I like it. But how does it actually work? Does it, like, list out each organ and then its spiritual equivalent?
Well, not exactly. Anatomy of the soul takes a much, I guess you'd say, deeper approach. It says that every single organ and every system has a spiritual counterpart.
Okay.
And they mirror each other.
Interesting.
So if one is unhealthy, the other's too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example? What's something in the text that really stood out to you?
Let's take the liver, for example.
Okay.
We all know the liver filters toxins from the blood.
Right. Basic biology.
Exactly. Well, the text takes that idea of filtering and connect it to our ability to transform our anger into humility.
Wait, hold on. Seriously. My liver is involved in processing anger? I've never thought about it like that.
It's really interesting when you think about it. Just like the liver removes all the physical impurities from our body, we have to put in the work to cleanse our anger and cultivate humility instead.
So what you're saying is holding on to resentment is, like, bad for my spiritual liver.
You could say that. Yeah, your spiritual liver might need a detox.
Yeah, I like that. So if I'm feeling annoyed all the time, it's not just me being grumpy. It's actually, like, a sign of a spiritually sluggish liver. This is blowing my mind.
And that's just one example. The text goes on to describe the bloodstream as a vessel that carries both the holy presence and the, and I quote, evil inclination. It says we have both within us.
Whoa.
Constantly in flux.
Okay, so it's like this internal battle of good versus evil going on inside all of us. We're all kind of, like, spiritually conflicted. So how do we make sure that good wins?
Well, that's where our actions come in. The text is very clear. Just thinking good thoughts isn't enough. We have to put them into action.
Show, don't tell, basically.
Right. It's about making a conscious choice to feed the good, you could say. Which brings us to another key concept. Mitzvot.
Okay, mitzvot. Now, I know this is connected to Jewish tradition, but remind me what it means exactly.
In the most simple terms, mitzvot are commandments, precepts.
Right.
But it's not about blindly following rules. The text presents mitzvot as incredible opportunities for spiritual growth. They're actions that can connect us to a higher purpose.
So it's not enough to just, like, think about it. We have to walk the walk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like our actions are the fuel for our spiritual growth.
I like that. It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And the mitzvot, they're like a guide to help us choose the right fuel, so to speak.
I like that. But honestly, sometimes life feels less like spiritual growth and a lot more like just getting through the day, you know? So, like, how do these mitzvot actually play out in the real world? How do we actually use them?
Well, the text puts a lot of emphasis on the power of speech.
Okay.
It actually calls it a kingly power.
Oh, wow.
Because it can be used to uplift or to damage. And that goes for ourselves as well as those around us.
Oh, interesting.
So speaking kindly, speaking truthfully, these become acts of deep spiritual significance.
It's making me think about all those times I just blurt something out without thinking.
Sure.
It's like my words have a much bigger impact than I realized, you know?
It's true. And it all connects back to that idea of the covenant that we talked about earlier.
Abraham's covenant. Can you remind me how that fits in with all of this?
Yeah, so the text suggests that just like Abraham had this agreement with God, requiring constant action and upkeep on his end, we all have a similar type of covenant, but with ourselves.
Okay.
It's this ongoing commitment to strive for spiritual growth.
So every choice we make, every word we speak, it all plays a part in upholding that personal covenant. Man, that's a lot of responsibility, when you think about it that way, at least.
It is, but it's also incredibly empowering.
Okay.
We're not just along for the ride, we are in the driver's seat. And while that can feel overwhelming, the text does offer a source of guidance and inspiration. And that is the concept of the tzaddik.
Okay, tzaddik. Now that one rings a bell. It's like a really, really righteous person.
Exactly.
Okay.
In Jewish mystical thought, a tzaddik is someone who embodies spiritual ideals. They are living proof that it's possible.
So like a spiritual mentor. Someone further along the path than we are.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. The text uses this interesting analogy to describe both the tzaddik and the people who follow their teachings.
Okay.
It talks about feet.
Feet. Okay. How do feet play into this?
Well, think about it. Feet are how we move forward on any journey.
Okay.
The tzaddik, having already navigated the terrain, can help us by guiding our steps, showing us the way.
So even if we're unsure where we're going, even if we stumble, there's someone who's been there before who can offer a helping hand. Or a foot, I guess.
Precisely. And even if, we don't subscribe to the specific religious context, the idea of seeking out mentors, finding people who inspire us and embody the qualities we want to cultivate, that's something we can all connect with.
Absolutely. We all need those guiding lights in our lives to remind us what's possible.
Right.
It makes the journey feel a little less intimidating when we have that support.
Yeah.
But, with all this talk about individual journeys, I'm curious, does Anatomy of the Soul ever address the bigger picture, like humanity as a whole?
It does. In a way that really stayed with me.
Okay.
Remember that concept we talked about earlier about the bloodstream carrying both good and not so good?
Yeah, the whole internal struggle thing.
Right. The text suggests that just like our own individual bloodstreams reflect that duality, so does the bloodstream of humanity as a whole.
Whoa.
We are all connected,
Whoa.
all part of this one larger flow of good and bad, and we're constantly influencing one another.
That's a powerful image. So it's not enough to just try to purify ourselves, right? We have to help heal the whole system.
Exactly.
Wow.
Our individual journeys of spiritual growth, our efforts to choose kindness, our efforts to speak truthfully, these have ripple effects.
Wow.
Far beyond what we realize.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the covenant of Abraham in a really profound way, I think.
It's like we're all responsible for keeping the whole thing going. Our choices, the mitzvot, they're not just about us. They impact everyone.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer to personal growth when you think about it like that, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just about checking things off my spiritual to-do list.
Right.
It's about being a part of something so much bigger than myself.
And that's what I think is so amazing about Anatomy of the Soul. It leaves you feeling responsible, yeah, but also full of possibility. Like we can heal ourselves. And by doing that, we help heal the world around us too.
Sure, by the everyday choices we make.
Exactly.
It's like we all have this hidden potential just waiting to be unlocked. It reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with our bodies and how they react to things.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to tell us something.
They are.
We just have to learn to listen.
We do. And then we have to act. Anatomy of the Soul isn't just about understanding these concepts.
Right.
It's about putting them into practice in our everyday lives.
When I first started reading about all of this, I was a little intimidated, if I'm being honest. Yeah, like, am I doing this whole spiritual growth thing right? Am I following the rules? Is there even a right way to do this?
I think that's a really common reaction. But what I love about this text is that there's no dogma. It's not about following a rigid set of rules.
Okay.
It's about recognizing some of these maybe universal truths.
Okay.
Like the connection between our physical and spiritual selves.
Right.
Or the power of our choices. And the importance of seeking out guidance when we need it.
And figuring out how we can use these truths in our own lives.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. It's not about following the rules. It's about finding what works for you.
Finding the practices, the mitzvot, that speak to us, that resonate with our own spiritual anatomy.
Exactly. And that journey, that exploration, that's where the real magic happens.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad to hear it.
And a lot to do. I'm ready to put all this into practice. No more excuses for this grumpy liver.
I love that. And remember, it's a lifelong journey. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect state.
So be kind to ourselves along the way.
Yes. Be kind to yourself.
Great advice. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey into the pages of Anatomy of the Soul. We hope that your own journeys are filled with insight and compassion.
Hear, hear.
Until next time, keep diving deep.